statements. I acknowledge that we're meeting on the ancestral land of the Ngunnawal people. I recognise the Ngunnawal as the traditional custodians and pay respect to the elders of the community and their descendants. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of the Yass Valley. Amen. We have apologies from Councillor Burgess and Councillor Abbey, and if I may at this time pass on the best wishes of all of the councillors and all of the staff to Mayor Abbey and wish her a speedy recovery.
I'll move acceptance of the apologies.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Seconded. Any declarations of pecuniary interest or special disclosures?
I've got a interest in the confidential reports.
Yes, I imagine so. I imagine so. Now others? The confirmation of the minutes council meeting held on the 28th of July. Councillor Reid, thank you. Councillor Frost, all those in favour? Carried. The first item of business is the mayoral minute.
I'll move that, Acting Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Furley, seconder. Councillor Harper. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? Unanimous. The Director of Planning and Environmental reports. First item, the development consent. With your approval, I think we'll go through. It's only a short agenda. We'll go through item by item rather than trying to do a block booking. So we'll take them seriatim. 6.1. Councillor James, moved by Councillor Frost. Seconded. Councillor Harker. Any discussion?
Brief one, if I may.
Let me.
Councillors, just wanted to restart a conversation we'd had that for the benefit of the community, that this is not based on any other precedents that we haven't offered to anyone else who had asked for a deferral in their payments.
So I think I can confirm that this is a similar arrangement as previously been offered to other applicants.
Thank you.
Question.
Discussion.
Mr. Acting Mayor. Yeah, question, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Yes.
Can we have an update on the situation of the other people that this has been offered to? I believe some of them have been concluded. It can either be a verbal now or in a formal report. It's up to the General Manager.
Do you want me to respond? I'm currently working on that report, Councillor McManus. I'm hoping to have it back either September or the October meeting.
The other reason I ask is these are they're on the side of the books. They don't actually appear in the mainstream part of our rates and development charges. So it'd just be good to get an update on all outstanding ones, all outstanding voluntary planning agreements.
Thank you, Councillor McManus. It's always nice to have someone who keeps an eye on what is still outstanding. Thank you for that. Any further discussion? No. Motion then. All those in favour? Against? Carried? Unanimous. 6.2, variations in the Development Standards Quarterly Report.
Okay.
Councillor Frost, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Jones? Any questions? Any comment? I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Against? Carried? Heavy Haulage Development Contribution Plan. Mover and seconder, thank you, Councillor Ferry. Seconder, Councillor Reid, thank you.
Acting Chair, if I can speak to the motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, this in short, Mr. Acting Chair, is a significant improvement, and that's been reflected by the submissions that we have received as in council and councillors. One comment I would make though is that no matter how much we revise a policy and we improve a policy, the ultimate determinant in the efficiency and effectiveness of a policy is its ability to be enforced. So I just reiterate, as I have in previous meetings, in fact, I think before this went to exhibition, is that our ability to effectively act on this policy is dependent on our ability to enforce it, which means we need to have the resourcing to do that. So I just wanted to reiterate the point I made prior to this going out to exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferry. Any other comments? Councillor Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. The only comment I would make on this is I think there may be other opportunities. I think it's a great step forward, and we really have changed the game in terms of the amount of money that people have been need to pay for the damage they do to our roads, and that's what we've been lining up. I notice in some of the submissions there's been comments that there may be other opportunities where we may be able to bring this up to date, and we may be able to get similar charges in, and the submitters have made various suggestions, and I'm sure that our staff will also see areas where we may be able to as well make sure that when we have heavy vehicles moving around, if they're not, when they do it either carrying a lot of material and or they do it repeatedly, and I think we have some people that are setting up things like depots and things like that where they're repeatedly on the same road over and again, then we should be looking at having something similar to this in order to do that. Now, that may be an amendment to this later on down the track, or it may be other parts of our regulations. But I think it's a really good move for us to go forward and build on this. Let's pass this now, but then build on this so that we have a more holistic policy that people do actually pay. It becomes a user pays for heavy vehicles on our roads.
Ms. Jones.
I just wanted to seek clarification from the director on this particular plan in terms of the submissions which have drawn attention to the fact that there is the option for discretion in how it's applied, and I wanted to just seek clarity because it's my understanding that the discretion is to what tool they apply as opposed to whether or not to apply a cost. And I just wanted to get that out there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The discretion that's mentioned in the submissions and in the plan relates to which plan is applied to which type of development, and whether you pull out in one development the heavy haulage component and charge that under the heavy haulage contributions plan, and the other component of the development is charged under the existing contributions plan. That's the discretion. There's no discretion around whether or not we charge the contribution. And in fact, the delegations for the staff that if you wish to vary the development contributions plan in terms of how it is applied, then that would have to come to council for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Harper.
Thank you. Now I'm trying to work out what to call you now. Acting Chair.
Just call me councillor.
We had this conversation before you joined in Zoom. We asked what we should call. Okay. And so use the word councillor. Thank you. Just want to, I suppose, thank the community for the contribution to this plan. It has been very thoroughly done through the council staff and the councillors, so thank you. But what I suppose wanted to make note of was there was a lot of conversation about what this does to agriculture and is there a particular impact, and to know that that has gone into consideration. And we've also asked the questions of other councillors, other council areas, and how this might have been implemented in the LGA, and I think the answer was that we're somewhat unique, and so we've had to apply our own policies and guidelines for the Yass LGA based on the feedback and needs of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the Zoom wishing to make a comment? All done. Well, I'll put the motion under those circumstances. All those in favour? Against?
Sorry, Kim. Sorry. I noticed in there that's a four-yearly review, acting Mayor.
Just call me
Do
councillor.
other councils ever have their?
Carry on.
Do other councils have the charges in their rates and charges so that the charges can be increased annually as opposed to 4-yearly reviews, or in this case, 8-yearly reviews or 15-year reviews, so that just like you have a points in the state government legislation, a lot of the penalties and charges are based on points, which is reflected in an annual increase, so that you don't have to keep going back and reviewing the plan. Has that ever been tried?
There is a CPI factor in the plan for annual reviews of the actual contribution rate. So the rate that's in the plan at the moment is if you like, year one, and then every year it gets reviewed, and it's those reviewed fees that get put into the fees and charges in your operational plan. So there is an annual mechanism within the plan that is required to be done on an annual basis.
But they don't appear in the fees and charges that we set.
That's correct.
Do they?
What happens is that when every year we review all our contribution rates by the formula that's included in the plan itself, and those review figures get placed in the fees and charges for the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So anything beyond CPI would have to be a full review.
Correct, yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think in the submissions, some of them asked about reviewing basically the basis for the contribution, so the way the road chart, like the cost of the roads and that sort of thing, and building that into the contribution rate every year. So that was detailed in some of the submissions, but in my opinion, a review every 4 years would be adequate. Like that, this is a significant body of work. We'd have to put that out for contract every year to be reviewed, whereas we think a 4-year review based around the integrated planning and reporting framework would be more appropriate. Does that assist?
Righto. Yep. Yep, right.
Just as a matter of protocol in this, with the Zooming, can I ask those who Zoom who actually want to address the motion to put one of those little yellow hands up on their screen, which they'll find in notifications down the bottom there, to say that they wish to speak on the matter. Right, because it's very difficult to know whether you're actually voting on it with your hand up in the air or whether you're actually waiting to talk to it. Councillor Ferry.
And Acting Chair, this is just an example. Thank you.
But if you would do that, then it will come immediately to my attention that you actually want to talk, and we'll be able to make sure that we do things in the right order. Once again, I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Councillor, is that against? Councillor McManus, was that against? Councillor McManus? No. Shaking his head no. Very well.
No, that was a no. I'm actually in favour.
Thank you. We'll get there. Bear with me. 6.4, road reserve encroachment, Green Street, Yass, development consent. Moved by Councillor Frost. Seconded, Councillor Jones. Nobody will have hands up. Councillor Frost.
Councillor, let me just say that I think it's a sensible resolution that's happened with what seems like sensible negotiation from all parties, and it's unfortunate that some of the work wasn't done a lot earlier when somebody acquired land, but having found themselves in the situation, all parties seem to have done a good job in resolving it.
Councillor Reid.
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Your little hand went down again.
Yeah, I'm just experimenting. I couldn't find the off button.
We've got to be issued with a yellow hand.
Very well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
Yep.
Carried. Move to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets report. 7.1. Water source strategy update. Mover. Councillor Jones. Seconded, Councillor Harker. Any questions? No?
Nope.
Very well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Sorry, apparently I need this off to do my job, so I'm just going to take that off and hold the glass. Through you, Acting Chair, Acting Mayor, current Chair, I'd just like to state that staff have obviously done what they can to find the funds in order to do this. It's very disappointing that we can't get on the same page. With DPIE, this seems to be a common theme, which is really unfortunate. The fact that we have to be part of some kind of, regional plan is ludicrous. Yass Valley in itself and its water source is independent in its nature. We've had to go it alone before. We have paid the price of that, and we continue to pay the price of that. And I think it's really important that it be noted that we have not been eligible under their current terms, and that rigidity from the state government is not good enough. The fact that there is not a flexible program where we can apply for a very nominal amount to get this kind of work done to secure water for our community, it's not good enough, and it needs to be said. And if it's the federal government that eventually comes with the money, or the state government, I really don't care where it flows from, as long as we can secure water for our community. And I know that our staff will do as much as they can to keep in lockstep with this department, even though we don't have support from them for the funding. We're going to need their support in the future, so we don't see a repeat of the dam situation, where our community was literally left high and dry to do this all by ourselves. And it's ironic that other communities are searching for the same kind of figure, around $30 million to upgrade similar water systems around us through this department that we haven't had any joy with so far. But for this particular item, I don't think it's good enough that they haven't been flexible enough in their process. It looks extremely straightforward. Identify future water sources for our community. The state government has fast-tracked other locations in the Yass Valley and near to us in terms of Parkwood to build an extraordinarily large community, and they expect water to flow from somewhere, and that would no doubt come from Canberra. And it seems extremely odd that 20 kilometres up the road in Murray Bateman we can't secure similar kind of fast tracking of attention and funding for a very nominal amount to make sure that we're on the same front foot forward, because it does mean development and economic development for our community. Securing water is the key to all of our plans for this area. So I'm disappointed in state government, but I commend our staff for continuing to search and look at funding for this, and also for working with this department going forward.
Through Mr. Chair, just a quick update. We've just had a confirmation today of an appointment with the Minister for Water. I'll be raising this issue with the Minister. I agree. It's the game isn't over just yet. We'll have another crack at trying to free some of that state government money up for this important project.
Fantastic.
In the meantime, let's not try to push them into a corner where they decide to throw their weight around. Thank you, Councillor James. Any other comments from the Zoomers? No, I'll put them. Councillor Frost, yes.
Sorry, I'm not zooming.
No.
Can I just make a brief comment? Guys, congratulate the director for taking this up. It's 3 years ago that we started doing this, and to me that it's good, and I think it's I think now that we have a very active, proactive director in the place, I think some of these things are getting done, and I'm very pleased about that. Thank you. Thank you. And I would make the point though that for $50,000, if that's the reason that we've been hanging off for a long time, sometimes it's one of the disadvantages of constantly getting grants from government is that we actually prolong our processes in order to hang off for a grant. And I think this is a case that shows maybe we shouldn't always do that. Maybe we should just go ahead and do it. But I would make the point that we must also engage with the state government, because they're going to be the bigger funder in this in the long term.
Thank you, Councillor Frost. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 7.2, the Black Spot Program grants. Thank you, Councillor Ferry moved. Second, Councillor Reid. Wish to open the voting, Councillor Ferry?
I reserve my right, Acting Chair.
Very well. Any comments from the floor?
Right, okay.
Straight out, okay, we'll accept anything that's offered to us. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Crago Mill Precinct business case. Move Councillor Jones.
Of the alternate motion, that's okay.
Alternate motion, very well.
So that council approve the development of a business case for the Crago Mill Precinct project, and that it be progressed with funding of $55,000 allocated from the Land and Buildings Reserve.
Thank you. Moved Councillor Jones. Seconder. Councillor Reid, thank you.
Just speaking briefly to it, Councillor Turner. I don't want to slow the bus down. I think we've seen time and time again that unless you have a plan ready, then you can't. The money doesn't flow in a nutshell. And if this is going to be a generational change project, we need to be ready for absolutely every and all grants available. So I really want to set this next council up with as much information as they can possibly get to make an informed decision on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. No little hands up there, no hands in here. Very well, I'll put the motion in that case. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Director of Corporate and Community. Investment and Borrowings Report. Movers all over the place. Mover Councillor Harker and Councillor Frost.
If I may.
Go for it.
Thank you. I know we've talked about this so many times, and particularly the NAB dam wall loan, but I think so from renegotiation we mentioned in August 2022. We've just been, that's one of our really significant interest rates. I look forward to for the next council to be able to do something about that and be able to reduce that. But I suppose just a reminder that the report be brought back, to the council, making them aware of this at an early stage and their ability to maybe change it and have some cost savings under the current low interest arrangements. May they last for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Harker. No hands up there, no hands down here. I'll put the motion in that case. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The draft 2020-21 annual financial statements. Councillor Frost and Councillor Harker.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I'll just make the comment that this is about the third year in a row where we've had to agree to move these on before we actually get to see them. And I know it's not our staff's problem, but there seems to be an issue in the whole process of the thing that doesn't allow for a logical, orderly evaluation, particularly by councillors of these things. So we need to put up with it, but I'm not sure how we actually get state government to change the system enough so that we can actually, and the deadlines and so on, so that we can actually have an orderly review of these statements before we pass them on to auditors and further. I don't think it's not a good way of doing business, and I would have thought after 2 or 3 years they would have sorted it, but they don't seem to have, and I'm not impressed that they haven't.
No little hands? Yes, one little hand.
So just following on from Councillor Frost, is there a better way of doing this that can be recommended back? I'm assuming all councils are subject to the same process. You've got very clear dates, 7 days and 5 weeks. I know a lot of other government agencies do it as a special purpose individual meeting, that they do it that way. I don't think we've actually done that in the past. We have just the audit risk improvement committee have. But yeah, I suppose I was just throwing it out to the director. I know it's early days, but is this the best process we have at this point in time? Or is there a better way, in light of what Councillor Foster said, to actually review these in what would be a more systematic process?
The process that we are working under, as you say, is a very tight timeframe set by the Office of Local Government, and this is something that all councillors are working with the OLG to try and adjust, and also with the Audit Office. It is a combination of timing and systems that we use, and it is very tight. and we are looking, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer and myself are looking at ways of can we improve this process and bring it forward. There is so much to wrap up that it's very difficult, but we are working.
Yeah, respect the complexity and the evolving situation with audit and financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no more hands, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Review of the fraud and corruption control policy.
Acting Chair, I'm happy to move that so long as the alternate motion is referring to a deferral pending a workshop with councillors. Noting I'm having difficulty seeing the Zoom share screen, but that's likely isolated to my device.
I know. Seconder.
What's that? That's the alternative, isn't it?
The alternate motion is the consideration of the draft fraud and corruption control policy be deferred for further discussion at a councillor workshop.
Excellent.
Seconder, Councillor Jones. Any discussion? No? Workshop? Wonderful. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Acting Chair, if I can just raise your attention, Director Doug Dell, sorry, James, has just raised he can't see the screen share either. So while this won't cause a massive impact to us following on from our papers at home, just for awareness of those in the chamber.
Thank you.
There was no screen share at all. And given it was an alternative motion, there was no argument why we should defer it. Just that we should have a workshop, but there was no argument as to why. So I voted against. Councillor, there was no screen share.
Thank you, Councillor McManus. Councillor Ferry, you were saying?
Acting Chair, just to confirm that the screen share seems to have returned for me. Know about other people on Zoom, or sorry, other councillors or staff on Zoom.
Yes, I can see it now.
Councillor McManus, can you see this?
It's there now, but it wasn't there before. And there was, as I say, there was no argument as to no reason for deferring it. So I voted against, given it was a new motion.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter. It's only a workshop.
Thank you. The 6-monthly progress report. Mover. Councillor Harker. Seconded. Councillor Frost. Easier to see hands in the chamber than hands out of the chamber. Councillor Frost.
Yeah, it's an excellent report. Thank you for that. The only comment I would make is that the few places where we do need a little bit of work to be done seem to be in the community area of our plan, and I'm very glad to have our new director on board, and that she, in the short time she's been here, really seems to be addressing some of those issues. And could I commend her for that, and commend the staff as a whole for allowing and causing that to happen, I would say. There's a lot of work to be done in that area, and a lot of not just goodwill, but good things for our community by focusing in that community area. We know we have all the other things, and we've done that in the past, but I think that community area is feeling the neglect, and I think a lot of our community members feel that council perhaps can do more, and it'll be great to see that happen.
Councillor Jones.
I absolutely support that. Lovely to see someone who can drive a helicopter and is hands-on at the same time. So it was lovely to see Lynette involved in the food bank. Congratulations. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. It was really great to see the key giving us the status of the projects, and I really liked the wrench. So what I did note in terms of the environmental work, in terms of working with local businesses to encourage recycling. Now, the elephant in the LGA is the fact that we no longer have our green recycling shed, and that has dropped off my particular radar. And it was really useful to get this report, and I go, where are we up to on that? And I couldn't, obviously I can't kind of delve deep down into this, but I could see that the work suggested to progress that particular item and its status was working with local waste contractors to ensure waste is appropriately separated prior to being dropped off at the waste transfer stations. When really our community, and we're yet to really test the waters on how much of our community, but certainly a vocal minority are calling for the return of the green shed, and for a variety of purposes, including recycling. So, this is really useful for me as a councillor at this point in time, but I think what we don't see is the issue for me in terms of passing this kind of system on to the next group of councillors. If they're interested in that, how do they look for that in a document like this? And maybe they can't, but it's just something that I'm noticing, that because of the corporate knowledge of the 9 years that I've been here, I was like, well, that's missing, and we really need to get working on that. The other thing that I know that our community is quite unhappy about is the state of our main street and the need for refreshing and stuff. And I was wondering where this sits in terms of what work needs to be done. I know we've got a plan that we're looking for a strategic plan for our main street, but I can't really pick this up in this document, and that may be because I've overlooked it or it's just not there. And how to, that's a fairly large item for our community, and so I can't see that. So, perhaps after the meeting, if someone can direct me to it, because I can't pick it out. That worries me if the community is also looking for this, going, where does our main street sit in, our objectives, and what's the status?
This finishes in 2021, so it's the next plan that you're really looking at.
Yeah, just a quick one. This is the delivery program which was set 4 years ago, or more than 4 years ago now, for the term of council. But it's our operational plan that actually allocates the annual projects and funding for those projects, which has just occurred with the adoption of this budget. So council's made some money available to get the planning done, and that will inform the activities that need to occur once that plan's been finalised. Director of Planning is looking after that particular project.
Yeah, the reason why I'm raising this is that that's such a large item, and it hasn't gone away in terms of the community wanting things done, whether it be the alleyway down between the Memorial Hall, etc. And I would expect it to be a work in progress, not just for this year, but previously, that we would, that we're not ignoring it, that yes, work needs to be done on that. So that's why I'm kind of looking at this going, well, I know it should be in one of our pillars in terms of our infrastructure, but I'm not seeing it at this particular level. So yes, I acknowledge that money's coming and plans are afoot.
No hands up. Got the motion then, all those in favour? Against? Carried. General Manager's report. Yass, water treatment plant upgrade funding, etc.
This is just a report for the
Yeah. It's to go into confidential.
If it hasn't happened already, Acting Chair, I'm happy to move both into confidential.
I'll second that.
In terms of 9.1,
Just take that one, just the motion to move those into confidential first. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
If I could just ask the General Manager to clarify as to why, because I mean, people might be interested to go, why is something to do with our possible rates, increasing or not increasing, why should that be considered confidential? So could you just clarify as to why we're throwing those?
I might just throw this to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets.
Councillor Jones, the reason we've moved this one to confidential, if you look at the last part of the report, the last 2 pages, they give specific detail on the future financial allocations to all the different projects we propose to do, and that tells the community how much money council is setting aside for those projects, but also tells potential contractors how much money council has to do those projects as well. And that's the information, because it's detailed and specific, we don't publish for that reason.
So, Frost. Thank you. I note that answer, and I sort of understand it. But I understood all the amounts of money that we actually spend will be the result after a long tender process, which and it'll be the tender process that decides how much we have to spend or not have to spend. We won't spend extra just because it's the tender process that puts the cap on the amount of money that we have to spend for a particular thing, not our estimate of what might go forward. And in that case, I'm uncomfortable with not going forward with this. I understand the logic, but I don't think it's enough to put something into confidential, because I think we have the process there. It's called the tender process. We spend a lot of time over it. We do a really good job in trying to make sure that we get as many people as we possibly can, and we ought to have more faith in it. We ought to have more faith in that process and allow the general population to see some of these things.
Comments, Nathan?
Oh, yep.
Mr. Acting Chair, if I can use my right as the mover to speak.
Yes, hand is up. I see your hand.
Thank you. Look, Acting Chair, with respect to councillors who have previously spoken, we, as we all know, rely on the industry expert advice and opinion of our executive management team, our EMT, in relation to these matters. Putting something in to confidential is not done lightly. I would propose that we push on with this recommendation, and that if we deemed that any information from these particular confidential matters should be considered in the public interest, that when taking this out of confidential, those items of particular interest could also go, if that was the decision by councillors, in confidential. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferry. That being said, we will put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
Hang on. Hang on.
Where's your hand?
Councillor McManus.
I know.
Did Councillor Ferry close it?
No, he spoke to it. He didn't speak.
Spoke to it.
Hello, Councillor McManus.
Just to the director, what's different between those tables and the annual budget, where those numbers will appear anyway?
By the time we've got to the annual budget, we've normally done the design, so it's more that the numbers are actually a different set of numbers that we put out there, because we've already gone to the market by the time you normally get to that stage with these large projects.
So can we consider the report with the 230-year capital financials off the report?
Yes. Yep. So
they're the 2 pages.
The last time
the 2 pages that are a problem.
Yes.
So if councillors would like to make it a public debate without discussing those last 2 pages, which is the capital expenditure over 30 years, which is going to be wrong by the time we go to tender anyway. But if we were happy to if you wanted to consider the rest of the report in the public domain without those 2 pages, that would be permissible, wouldn't it, Director?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor.
Can I get an opinion from the General Manager before we do it? Because the opportunity to go in and out of confidential really is under the discretion or the direction of the General Manager. Would he consider what I've just proposed?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's council's decision about whether something goes into closed session or not. The Act gives you very clear direction about what can be considered in closed session, but that doesn't mean to say you have to put it into closed session. I would tend to agree with the Director that we need to be very cautious in the not telegraphing specific project amounts to the marketplace that might actually jeopardise the tender processes there. So I think if you want to pull sections of the report out into the public arena, we will certainly have to make that available as part of the minutes process, like we did a few meetings back. And that certainly could be done as part of the way we present the minutes to the public after this meeting. So if you'd like us to do that, we can certainly do that as part of the minute taking process.
So for the purpose of public debate, we could consider the report without pages 9 and 10.
Yes.
Otherwise we go into full confidential.
Yes. So previously you've considered the report in the first part of the report in public, but not the last 2 pages, as you've said.
No.
This time I just moved the whole report because last time it raised some concerns at that point in time. But I'm happy for the first part of the report to go public. I've got no issue with that at all.
So when you say that, James, is that sections 1 and 2 of the report? But does it include section 3?
All bar the last 2 pages, page 9 and 10, or 89 and 90 of the
79 and 80?
89 and 90.
89 and 90.
I believe it's 89 and 90.
I have 89 and 90. So all bar pages 89 and 90.
So that's the attachment.
Well, it's part of the attachment.
The attachment goes from well before that.
Yeah.
The attachment's 81 to 90.
Actually, the simplest way of dealing with it is to leave the attachment as a confidential at this stage, and then just deal with the entire report in open council.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
Councillor Ferry, do you wish to close debate?
No, that last comment from the General Manager clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Councillor Jones?
So what are we voting on?
Seek further confirmation that on page 79, where we've got the summarised other major projects and the estimated costs that will is that already in the public arena, all of those items?
No, they're held by us and DPI at this point in time because they do the analysis for us.
They are only estimated costs though, aren't they, at this stage?
They're estimated costs against the proposed projects that we intend to do, yes.
So further work would need to be done to tighten up those figures one way or another?
We'll need to do further design work based on the timeline when we actually deliver those figures, yes.
So So provided we consider them as estimated costs only.
Yes.
Where more refined costs will be worked out once detailed design's been done. I think it's if the information was in the public arena on that basis, then that might be okay.
Very well, the outstanding, Councillor Ferry has a hand up. Yes.
If I'm okay to close debate and there's no further comments from councillors. Pausing for a check. Nope. Mr. Acting Chair, I understand the view to make this in the public arena. My concern is that we've now spent probably over 5 minutes talking about what sections are in, what sections are out, what subsections are in, what subsections are out. I truly think the tidiest way to do it is to still take this to confidential and then determine what information should then be released for public review. And that allows a freer conversation to form. So I will continue to support the recommendation as it is on screen.
Thank you. In closing the debate, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Councillor McManus, Councillor Jones and Councillor Frost.
No, I was for. I was for the recommendation.
There seems to be a time delay. Councillor McManus, for you overseas, are we going to here in between all those in favour? The hand seems to be. Right,
the river's rising, but it's a bit. The river's rising, but it's a bit bold to call it a sea.
All those in favour? All the reserves are in favour. Against? Councillor Jones and Councillor Frost. I declare that carried. Very well. Notices of motion, there are none. Questions with notice, there are none. So minutes, we will move into
the general manager's performance review. I think you want to move that into confidential.
that was moved, I thought, in the two motions.
Yes, it was.
Righto, we'll do one at a time. You move recommendation. Councillor Frost, thank you.
Point of order.
Yes.
Acting Chair, to be clear, the statement that I made at the beginning of both of these recommendations was that I moved both, and I believe that Councillor Reid, as the seconder, also seconded both. So those were both moved, seconded, and then carried.
That was clearly my understanding also. Very well. In that case, we will move into confidential and say goodbye to those who are watching us on